How
Always
are
a
you?
pleasure. Hey, good to see you, Joe. Good to see you.
So I just we had to make some changes, and I apologize for last week. As I mentioned, Teddy needed dad time, which is I know you can understand or respect. So, but the other change that we had to make with Facebook and how they do everything is we're actually live on YouTube.
Cool.
So I don't know how it all works yet, but we're gonna figure it out as we go.
You're gonna knock it out of the ballpark right here.
Right?
Yep.
It's Friday. It's 4:00 on the East Coast. Where are you, Doc? In Florida, right?
Florida, East Coast, 4 p.m.
Man,
It
maybe we
is
should start.
Cinco de Mayo this weekend and the Kentucky Derby.
Is it really?
I think. I hope.
Wow, that's weird.
Somebody clarify that.
It
It's not a
usually
sure
is.
bet.
That's right. Now that I'm a parent, I don't even. We used to go to those all three races every year, the whole Triple Crown. But that sounds about right. Yeah. Speaking of, we can talk. We're going to use that as a metaphor in a little bit. The Kentucky Derby. Remind me to do that before I forget.
All right.
So, Doc, you've been on Dr. Harold Shinitzky, everybody, sports psychologist. But I'll stop talking. Doc, give a 2-minute background.
Was the director of prevention services at Johns Hopkins University at the School of Medicine. The material that I created, intervened with, developed, and kind of made my kind of career shifted into sports psych. And it's the idea that I'd rather deal with an issue rather than wait for it to become a problem. After my time with a lot of the kiddos in the schools and in the communities, we started working with teams and then corporations. And we were using the same material to be able to help take a much more proactive stance, to be able to address things before they're an issue. And this became a paradigm shift. So all the work that I was doing at Hopkins has now, down in Florida, I've now implemented that with the athletes that I work with, the programs that I work with, and the corporations that I work with. And it's really been a delight. A couple of years ago, I came out with a book called A Champion's Mindset. And whenever I present, there's usually people in the crowd who are business people. And they come up to me and are constantly pointing out, this is the kind of material I got to get my sales force to understand. And so for years, we have chatted about this idea of developing this kind of program, a protocol that can help for sales individuals, people in the business world, to facilitate their ability to reach the pinnacle of their careers and in their specialties. So I've done workshops on a millionaire's mindset. I've worked with Fortune 500 companies. And so it's a delight to be here again with you today to be able to share this information with your listening and viewing audience.
Round 2, that's right. You were one of the first a couple years ago to be on Windshield Time. I appreciate it.
Oh, obviously, it's my pleasure.
Mention that often to you when we speak. So yes, we are. You are helping me bring this to the forefront because it's one of those quotes that I always see all the time, or in reference that reminds me of this is performance equals performance equals potential minus distraction. That's right. So we already know most of it, in especially selling, we know what to do, but we just don't seem to do it. Mm-hmm. And then you have sales managers out there banging their heads up against the wall, owners banging their heads up against the wall, right? Like, why won't they do it?
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why probably people are like, Dr. Shinitzky, psychologist, where's Joe going with this? But ultimately, and I think you may have mentioned, so sports psychology, with my background in sports, and this was how this all began for me, was I finally asked you one day, hey, Doc, do thoughts, feelings, and behavior in the sports psychology triangle? I said, do those relate to business and selling? And you were like, relate to everything.
Yes.
Right? And at the end of the day, some people even call it performance psychology. It doesn't make a difference if it's baseball.
High performance,
peak performers. So one of the things that I wanted to chat with you today, and I think everybody will get a great deal of value from, is understanding or finding ways to have more consistency in our performance, right? Even a broken clock's right twice a day. What the game of selling is very infinite, right? Just because it's the last day of the month doesn't mean that it's the last day of the career, right? It starts back over the next day, really starts over every day. But
Right.
how do you see what your work and in business, but also with elite athletes, how does that correlate to driving? Same concept, right? What I learned with baseball was I had the talent to do it,
Mhm.
but I didn't have the mental toughness to consistently perform day in and day out. And that usually is the difference between a pro athlete and semi-pro type
Right.
baseball player, whatever. It doesn't make a difference.
Yeah, we all have room for improvement. And I think if you just start with that premise, that opens you up to the possibilities. Many individuals, well, how do I say this? Everything you think, feel, say, and do makes sense to you. So you don't know what you don't know. And if you're open to the possibilities that there are people who have gone through this ahead of you, they have already identified key steps that increase your probability for being able to make your sale or communicate or connect with. If we're all open to the improvement, that's a first place, I think, for most people in their careers. If you're in sales, if you're in sports, the ability to kind of set realistic goals. So I always talk about when you set your expectations and goals, people always look at me and they kind of go, well, how do we know if they're good or not? And I always say, well, your happiness is directly correlated to your expectations. So what do you want me to have? Low expectations so I can be happy? No. You should always have high expectations, and I will always hold you to high expectations. But then we need realistic versus unrealistic expectations. And a lot of individuals are utilizing unrealistic expectations. When I'm supposed to get to a certain level, how fast, how easy, whatever it might be. You could take all of the trainings, whatever they are, in how to approach someone, how to close a deal, how to contract, how to negotiate. And I always like to point out, there are no guarantees. There never were, are, or will be. There are none. Obviously, we're all adults, so we can laugh and giggle and say the two absolutes are death and taxes. Okay. But beyond that, since there are no guarantees, the goal is how can I increase my probability of success? There are numerous ways that you can go about increasing your probability of success, whether it's giving a presentation to the CEO of a corporation, if it's meeting with mom and pop out at their house, whatever it is. None of them guarantee anything, but they all increase the probability of success. And so if I have the ability of picking and choosing which skills best flow in this situation, and if I have the training that direct me to be able to follow a specific training protocol, those increase the probability of success. They don't guarantee anything. So I always want to start from the premise we all have room for improvement. And if you're open to that, when you begin your business sales career, you can find that you're going to seek out opportunities because they exist. And they are out there for the picking, the reading, the training, and the experience. So that's where I would really like anyone who's listening right now is there's always room for advancement and growth.
Yeah, that's there's a lot to unpack there. The one is something you've really drilled in with me a lot is, nothing is all you can do is increase the probability of success.
That's it.
Which is the natural segue transition to my, and you talk about it in the book, and we talk about it often too, is process over outcome.
Yeah.
Obviously, enough. You're very well versed in all areas of life and business, and there's a lot of correlation between sports and what we do in the home. I kind of like to think that we're literally, I don't know, like white collar athletes, right?
Yes.
We're emotional as all get out. And, we're wound up a little tighter than normal probably, but, what I'm getting at is we follow I say we, meaning members of the group, most probably follow some form or fashion of a structured sales methodology, sales process type thing. Usually it's it's a one sit close. So I meet with you today. I'm asking you for your order probably within 90 minutes to a couple hours, give or take. And it's pretty much laid out, pretty scripted, especially early in the career, especially. Companies invest, owners invest a lot of money to get the appointments. And so they, if you think about it, I always look at it as like, I put out this large sum of money because I have this almost guaranteed ROI based on this sales methodology and these numbers, we should yield this in return. And it's pretty much proven, if you will, to get at least a baseline, but budgetary type performance out of a group or a team.
Yeah.
And yet, matter of fact, I think there was just a post today in the group. I'm not bashing anybody. I'm always grateful that people have opinions and put more info in the group. But one of them was talking about how important it is to be results oriented and or focused. Yeah.
I tilt my head a bit on that. It's almost as though the devil's in the details. We've got to take care of the small steps if you really want to get to the big ones. That's the whole idea of process over outcome. The drawback is, for any athlete I work with, whenever they get ahead of themselves and they're focusing on the trophy or the outcome, or if I finish this game and I'll get on the next, or, I've just won the first set, the second set's going to be a breeze. Whenever an individual gets ahead of themselves, starts focusing on the future, they actually remove themselves from the now. And it's the now that gets you to that. Long-term goal, short-term steps. I can increase my probability, but I have to take care of these things right here, right now. I tend to say the phrase that I use is the execution determines the destination. It is my striking of the ball in baseball, the striking of the ball in golf that leads to its eventual destination. I obviously identify where I'd like to hit it, but then I have to execute. So I always bring it back to, it is, how can I be effective before efficient? I need to do what I do, and I need to do it well. I need to be able to connect with this person. I need to communicate clearly with this person. I need to identify what this person's needs are. I need to be able to discuss what the options are. I need to take care of this. It's not, hey, I've got like 10 people I'm seeing today. I'm just pumping out these numbers. It's quality over quantity. If you look at the percentage of the return, if the sales force increase their sales closing, I don't know, 2-3%, would they be happy?
Yeah.
Yes, they would be.
Yeah.
The curious thing is, we oftentimes get distracted by the outcome. I tell everybody that I work with, there are 3 things that don't matter in sports: the name of the event, the number of people who are watching, or even your opponent, or the trophy. They don't matter. They're distractions. The name of the event doesn't matter because the laws of physics don't change. If I'm playing football in the Super Bowl versus football in the 4th week of the season, the football field is still 100 yards, 10 yards for a first, and I still have to use this funny shaped ball. If I get distracted by the name of the event, oh, this is the biggest event of my life. Well, once I tell everybody, whatever you label it, it becomes. So now my physiology reacts because I say it's the biggest. Well, okay, now I have to deal with my physiological tightness. All of a sudden, I change. My skills change. All because of my thoughts, my feelings, or my perception. I have the skills, but they will change because I'm now distracted by the name of the event. The number of fans or my opponent. My skills are my skills. It doesn't matter who I am competing against. If I do my best, again, No guarantee, but it increases the probability of success. So the number of fans, well, in sports, none of them touch me. And if I'm focusing on them, again, I'm not focusing on the task at hand. And if I'm changing my skills to something that isn't in my skill set because I'm playing a different opponent, no, I better play within my skills. The same when it comes to knowing my product. Better not be lying, better not be blowing smoke.
Yeah.
My ability to be in the moment. And then the last one is the trophy. If I'm focusing on the trophy, I'm not focusing on the task at hand. I remove myself from the now. If I'm in golf and I'm worried that am I going to make the cut? Well, the cut's changing based on how everyone's performing. And if I'm focusing on the cut, I'm not focusing on striking the ball. It all comes down to when I go in and I meet with Joe Q Public or Jane Q Public, I have to do a couple of things. I need to determine what is their readiness to change. If I'm in a collaboration, and this is key, if I'm in a collaboration, that's what I believe when you get into the sales world. It is a collaborative process of a relationship. I don't look at them as a revenue stream. If I look at customers as a revenue stream, I will be nickeling, diming them, and it is cutthroat at that point. It is my victory at the cost of the customer. It is a pretty destructive, demoralizing, hostile type of world, and it's all results oriented at that point for my gain. I'd like to kind of shift in that because it's now going to the quality of the relationship. If I actually find out where this person's at, they have reached out, they've asked for information, they have been identified by the corporation provides me with the lead, and I now go out to the lead. Where are they at with their, what I call, well, it's not what I call it, it's a concept called readiness to change, or the trans-theoretical model. No one calls it that. And the readiness to change, you need to determine, there are 5 stages. Is this individual in what's called the pre-contemplative, where they're not thinking about this at all? Well, they've already thought about it, done some research, and contacted you guys. All right. Then there's the contemplative phase, where they're weighing out the pros and cons, the cost, the benefit, take action, not take action. Pretty confident that they're in this phase right here. They may have already done their homework and talked with a couple other people, and they've actually gotten to the point where they know they're going to pull the trigger, and now they're in the preparation phase. They're still not changing. They haven't taken the action yet. So the odds are you've got individuals who are in these two, one of these two, I should say. My job is to help move them one stage at a time. That's the key. You can only move one stage at a time. So there's pre-contemplative. You just knock on a door. It's a cold call.
Yeah.
Someone reaches out, gives you a request. You come out to their place. They're in the process of weighing it out. And I literally will sit with my patients and I'll go, well, tell me about the pros and the cons, the reasons that you want to do and that you don't want to do, or why do you do something that's destructive? Tell me the reasons you do it because it's rewarding. Tell me the downside of it. And I literally do the scale in front of them. They could make the decision, I'm going to change. I'm going to lose weight, save money, be more loving, whatever it might be. And they're in the preparation phase. They still haven't started to change. Then they get to the action phase. And that's where we look at for the close. Can I move someone from contemplative to preparation where they've made the decision to change? So knowing what someone likes about what they currently use, there's a reason they got whatever it is that they got. There's something that they like about what they have. Cool. Is there anything that I have with what we're bringing to the table that matches those? So we can make them feel recognized, heard, that we value the same things, and we can assist them with those. What things are missing from what they currently have? Oh, well, in that case, since we've already talked about the reasons that you like what you do, and we can assist you with that, we also have the opportunity with these products or this service, or how we can then address that. So it's not just selling someone on something, it's understanding where they come from, and you can help move them from the contemplative to the preparation, then to the action phase. So understanding where somebody's at is vitally important. Not just, well, I don't like the neighborhood. The guy doesn't look like he's really well off. He's just tire kicking today. My assumptions could interfere with the whole process of understanding and establishing a relationship, finding out where the person's at, speaking the language they do, connecting to them, finding out what their needs are, and being able to serve that changes the whole dynamic. It is not something I'm doing to this person. It's something I'm doing with this person. That was a lot of information that I just went through.
I love it. I love it because it's way different, but still can be used in the same context of, you and I've talked about this before. You can move somebody through those stages still in a single sitting, a single appointment.
Yes. Yes.
It doesn't need to flow up necessarily. It's just how you approach and again come to in a collaboration effort. And then the last thing that you mentioned around action, I know you've told me in the past, so I can't say that I know, but it's you're facilitating a decision. It may be no.
Right. That's
but
okay.
At least you're facilitating a decision. It's not so much like we talk about all the time, close. When at that point, it just becomes very simple as, does this make sense?
And there are people who feel very comfortable with that model. They're going to shove a square peg into a round hole. It's going to end up costing the corporation a whole lot down the road in terms of how to try to fix something and how to try to adapt something and maybe negative publicity. What's the old comment that Warren Buffett says? It takes 20 years to build up a reputation and 5 minutes to lose it.
Well, the other thing that you didn't touch on is number 5 is maintenance, right?
Didn't even get there. That's right. Yeah, the maintenance.
So we have in an in-home sale environment, in a first sit environment, you have a 3-day federal or whatever right to rescind on the contract to protect the homeowner. But then usually you have a couple of weeks between that day and installation of the products in some cases, depending. That you've got to that relationship
maintenance
stick, through that. So I think it correlates spot on. I was thinking about you the other day. I meant to tell you this at the start, but you brought it up, so I'll bring it up now. I was reading an article, or I'm sorry, I guess it was an article. They were talking about Ben Hogan.
Yep.
And I know you work with a lot of golfers and tennis, and especially, but this was, I guess he played in the 40s. Does that sound right? Maybe
so.
So this was happened twice. This guy who he played with told the stories, but he said he hit a putt, 8-foot putt, and it hit a divot on the green, right? So this goes to the fact of what you're saying is you can do everything right and still lose, right? So prime example of that. So he hits a putt, hits the divot, doesn't go in. He doesn't really react, the guy said. Nothing, and then goes back up, taps it in, and walks off. And the guy says, "Oh, man, sorry, bummer, you missed that putt." And he looked at him like straight face. He goes, "I didn't miss the putt. I did everything I wanted to do." So he reinforced, so sometimes you can win in the home and not win on the scoreboard, but it also happens the other way around where you may win in the home on the scoreboard, meaning a contract, a sale, but it was done entirely the wrong way. And all you've done is reinforce a bad habit. The other part of the story that was my favorite, and this is what I wanted to talk more about today, was so the guy he's playing against, and he was probably famous too, but I don't remember. And the thing says it's one of the famous par 3s at the Masters. And mind you, it's in the 40s, but they're still, it sounds like, pretty well attended event. The guy, par 3, stripes it, hole in one at the Masters, place that, however big the crowd was, and goes wild. Then Hogan gets up, strikes it, same thing, 5 feet from the hole, goes up, taps in for birdie. They're walking to the next hole, and the guy said, the guy looked at him, this is the guy who hit the hole in one, said, great birdie. And Ben Hogan responds, he goes, "Yeah," because that's only the second time I've ever birdied that hole. And the guy's like, "Did you not just see me hit a hole?" Not that he won. He said the whole point of it, he was so in his zone, he didn't even see a guy hit a hole in one. And again, even though it's in the 40s, a major, tournament. I'm sitting there reading, and the whole article is about focus, which then brings me to, that's probably the biggest challenge is, in honor of the Kentucky Derby, keeping blinders on.
Yes. There you go. There is the metaphor.
Right?
Yeah.
And, I'm sure there's a bunch of reasons. I'm not into the equine industry like I should be, maybe, but, I know part of the reason,
They get skittish if they get shadows off the sides.
Yeah. I look at it as, hey, look, they're keeping them focused towards what's in front of them, not who's beside them, around them, or anything. Same concept. Right. So I think it's a challenge for a lot of people in today's environment.
Yeah. The curious thing is, in the book, one of the things I do is I talk about these 25 attributes of elite athletes, and straight smack dab right in the center is the key and vital point, which is my best. Doing my best is my best. When you play golf, you're not competing against anyone. You're competing against the course. You're not hitting someone else's ball. You're hitting your ball. And the reality is, all you can do is take care of this moment in time. A lot of individuals, interesting enough, they did some research, when things don't work out the way you want versus when things work out the way you do want. There's this concept called the attribution theory. What do you attribute the outcome to? And it's rather interesting. When you look at people who are not all that insightful, so I'm challenging some of your listeners right now when I say this. When things don't work out and you ask the individual, what do you think the reason was it didn't work out? More times than not, they'll say, because of the other. If I'm with a patient, it didn't work out. Well, because they had a bunch of distracting kids, or maybe they're not interested in changing. Maybe they're, whatever it is, they're not motivated, whatever. I blame them. If it works out successful, well, it's my skill, it's my ability, it's my, look at me, come on. The curious aspect, if we actually learn from the mistakes, the unforced errors, we talk about practice with purpose. And most people think practice with purpose is just like a pretend game in practice. Okay, that's what you do with your technical coach. That's what you do with the swing coach. That's what you do with your coach in sport. As a sports psychologist, when we talk about practice with purpose, it really means identify all of your errors, everything that was kind of a misstep, every single one of them, and then determine which one was the most frequent. And now practice the heck out of that.
Yeah.
In life, in sales, the same thing. If I am not taking any responsibility on a negative outcome, and that actually seems to happen on a regular basis because of them, I'm not truly addressing the most frequent and common unforced error. There are so many great athletes who are amateurs who will never go pro because they make too many unforced errors. They keep repeating the very same thing that prevents them from reaching the pinnacle of their sport. Same in sales. Individuals really don't stop and do a debriefing that points out, where could I have done this differently to increase my probability of success? And if someone on the sales team over there, someone who's listening right now, it could be as simple as, I don't make as much eye contact than I really should, since 60 to 80% of all communication is nonverbal. Maybe I'm sending the unintended message. Do I validate what the person's saying? Do I even respond to what the person's saying? Or do I just go into my shtick? Do I let the person feel heard, that I actually am respecting what they have? There are so many of these subtleties in terms of establishing the relationship where I'm not trying to twist someone's arm and argue with them and convince them. I'm collaborating, I'm cooperating, I'm working with them, I hear them. We are figuring out what the need is and how to best be able to satisfy it.
That's spot on. You're just dropping bombs today.
The blinders metaphor is great. your skills are your skills. And whenever you change your skills, you become less consistent. It's just how it is. So work your skills, work your game, work your ability. It is always better to lose playing your game than to lose playing someone else's game. So if I know how far and fast I can swim, and I get into a pool with Michael Phelps, and I try to swim with Michael Phelps, I'll be dead, just my heart coming out of my body after one lap. But if I give my best, I'm still going to get beaten by the guy. It's not going to increase my probability of success, but I will finish the race. It's better to lose competing with my skill than to try to do someone else's, because I'm going to lose using some other form. If I get down the pattern, if I understand what's worked, the product, how to communicate with the client to be able to match up with the customer. The research shows that I'm more likely to have a connection with the individual. I'm more likely to have a cooperative conclusion, which is more likely to increase closing. And if that's what you would like to do, you can choose to focus in on what actually has been working, what the research shows works, or you can kind of just turn a blind eye to it. Remember, the blinders allow them to move forward. The blinders don't block their view.
Yeah, good point. Keeps their focus channeled. The how do we like baseball is statistically it's a failure sport.
Yes, it is.
In let's just say industry average, I'm sure there'll be some guys that are like, not me, but industry average is going to be somewhere between 10 appointments, 4 close, 3, right? Company probably budgets 3, sales team pushes 4, whatever. So no matter what, still well below 50%. Again, for everybody that's listening to this or does listen to this, I'm talking about industry averages.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I wasn't thinking about it when I did this years ago, it was more in passing as a joke, but with Windshield Time, right? It's this sales here. It's like golf, like there's a lot of downtime.
Yes, there is.
Like baseball, right? And
yeah.
What you do during that Windshield Time is probably going to make or break, because you're dealing with a majority of the time. Again, statistically fail, but yet still succeed. It's probably, I guess, more. I don't even know if there's a question here as much as there is. Like, it's probably even more critical than most think to have some, the resiliency, the mental toughness that I use the word mental toughness, but that means a lot of things. It can be all encompassing. But what are some of the things like that you work with on athletes that feel pretty confident that would pertain to helping with? It's not a matter of if you're going to fail, but when, and it's going to be how well are you prepared to deal with it?
It's so interesting. Everyone who is listening right now has a pre-sales routine. They check out the information as best as they can about who they're going to be meeting with. They do their homework on that. They do their work on studying the product. They do all this pre-work, which is great. What we've discovered is what's equally important, but oftentimes not even addressed. I refer to it as the post-shot routine. So you finish one call, you go to another call. And in the post-shot routine, you have to remember when you have a sales call that works out and you slam dunk, you walk out of it going, yeah, I'm the man. Ha! It feels good. The problem is we don't learn from our emotions. Now, if I go in there and I just sell it, I mean,
whoa. Say that again. I don't think I've ever heard you talk about that. Learn from.
Oh, we don't learn from the emotions. They feel good. You're like, but what was it that I did during the session? Yeah. What did I do during the sales call that put me in a position? Was it literally that they had already made their mind up and I just showed up? Well, it could be, but also what is it about what I did? Now, if it turned out bad, and what is bad? Not making a sale. It doesn't even mean it's bad. It just wasn't a sale. I feel bad. We all react. And this is key. Everyone reacts. If I told you we're going to go to your favorite restaurant after this broadcast, how would you feel?
Good.
Good. A little smile on the face. Can't help it. We all react. If I tell you we go there and unfortunately we see a sign that says closed for the season, how do you feel?
Bummer.
Can't help it. We all react. So if something happens that's good, we feel good, releases and a certain serotonin and dopamine in the brain. Yeah, I like it. But the details of what I did, we're not learning from the I just feel good. Feel good is rewarding. But what did I do? If I don't have a positive outcome, I feel bad. All right, well, what do I do with that? If I just sit there and go, this field sucks. What am I doing in this? People. Who likes people? Now I'm going to be influencing my next interaction. The drawback is negative emotions linger and linger and people dwell on them. So you end up getting stuck in the past. Like, I can't change the past. I can learn from it. So if anyone has ever said, hey, you got to let it go. We humans can't let go unless we learn from it. So we must learn to let go in order to let go. So we have to learn, let go. Then you can do your pre-sales routine, reset so you can restart. So it's learn, let go, reset, restart. But you must learn. So what we teach all the athletes is after something happens, positive or negative, to ask themselves 3 questions. What was the plan? What actually happened? What do I learn from it? It's different regions of the brain actually firing. Down here, the limbic region, the emotional cortex of the brain. That was a good sale. Oh, well, this sucks. That's lower in the brain. But I don't learn from it. So I need to take it to higher cortical functioning. So what was the plan? All right. So I went and was going to do this. What actually happened? At some point, the nonverbal, I could see that the person wasn't connecting and they just were tire kicking and it wasn't feeling so good. And what do I learn from this? Well, there's things I can actually learn. And I say this so poignantly to all the listeners. Show me someone who thinks they know everything, and I'll show you someone who hasn't reached their potential. We all have room for improvement. So the post-shot routine shifts from the limbic region to higher cortical functioning. You actually learn from it. Imagine giving yourself a private lesson from you to you. Now, for the fun of it, I'll tell you the concept first. So another way of looking at this kind of post-sales call routine, your listeners are going to kind of go, dude, when I say this. All right. Third person first, first person second.
Okay.
So imagine after a sales call and you're like, whatever. Just put words in there if you'd like. And imagine your favorite supervisor, your favorite trainer, your favorite mentor. So we call it your favorite coach. Imagine them coming up to you. And I'll ask you, if something didn't go the way you wanted and it was frustrating and you blurred out something and your favorite mentor came up to you, what kind of things would your favorite mentor say to you? Seriously.
Like you're mentioning, let it go.
Okay, so let it go. What else?
Maybe, hey, but you did this really well.
Oh, I like that. Observe something that was positive.
Yeah.
Cool. Yep. What else?
What can you learn from it?
I got you. So there are things that you can take that you can grow from. The totality of the sales call, there were certain things that were on target and successful that we want to put it behind us, that you probably have a proven track record. You've been able to sell this product. It doesn't always work out. It's an opportunity to move to another call that hopefully you can go in there with the right frame of mind. All right. Now, all those things that we just said, convert those to I or me statements. So let me have you convert what you and I were just talking about and make them I or me statements.
I'm going to let go of this now. I did do this, and this correctly. So great job.
Mm-hmm. What do I learn from it?
Well, yeah. I could have done this.
I need to maybe take more active listening. I could have legitimated what the person's concerns were. I probably need to identify the pluses that the person has with the original product they have and discuss how we actually can provide those same things. I just kind of jump to the new, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
So in the sequence, I'm asking you, think of your favorite mentor first, third person first, and then convert everything to I or me statements, first person, second in the sequence. So third person first person second is again this idea of a private lesson from you to you. Imagine after every sales call, you improve. That's the process. That's beneficial. That's how you increase your probability of success. Amateurs, and we always talk about this, when you're working your way up, you have two goals: increase your skills and decrease your errors. It comes back to this. It is the unforced errors that prevents people from getting to the pinnacle of whatever their career or sport is. You have to address those. And we have these opportunities constantly.
Holy smokes. That's reminds me of Trevor Noah with getting neutral. It's like, hey, it's kind of hard to be, think positive in some, situations, but if you just stop the negative, that and get to neutral, like, it's like a diet. I always say to our team here, it's like, hey, if I don't need to eat tree leaves and bark for a diet. I just need to stop the double cheeseburgers at lunch. And you know what I mean? I just stop doing the dumb shit or saying the dumb shit.
Yep.
Which leads me to the other side. Something you and I work a lot on is self-talk.
Yes. Yeah.
So you start first. It's first phase is perception.
Oh yes. Okay.
The three. What do you call them?
I call them a little thing that if your listeners want to pay attention to this, it's just a little thing. I refer to this as the 3 keys to life.
To life. Yeah.
To life. This fits every situation in your life. Doesn't matter what you're doing, every single situation. It starts out with your perception. Your perception is either positive or negative to every situation in your life. There are some people who'll say to me, "Oh, Doc, I'm kind of neutral on that one." Well, if I push it, I'll find your neutral positive or neutral negative. Like riding loop-to-loop roller coasters. Someone might go, "Well, whatever, Well, if people want to go, would you go?" Yeah. Okay. Well, you're neutral positive.
Yeah.
I don't want to throw up. I don't want to get so, okay, you're negative, and you're neutral because you wouldn't even choose to go and think about it, but you're negative. And it could be anything.
Let's do it to our industry.
I was going to say the area of which the sales call.
I get an appointment issued to me from my manager the night before. I need to be at this person's home at 10 a.m. tomorrow. And let's just say it's in a bad part of town historically. Yep. Okay. Is that a good enough? Is that so?
It's a great example.
Okay.
So I have an initial perception. It's either positive or negative. It always makes sense to me because everything I think, feel, say, and do makes sense to me. So it's 100% me. And I'll explain exactly why. It's always that way. So if I tell you, I'm using the phrase, it's the biggest event of my life. Of course I was nervous. Well, there is no of course. It's based on my perception that I said is the biggest event, and how I physiologically react. The curious thing is my perception is a choice, and I end up taking either a positive or negative one. It's 100% me, and it can either be based on reality or it could be some fictitious fantasy that I just delusionally create up in my head. It could be productive, my perception, or it could be incredibly destructive. There are people who do very unhealthy things on a regular basis, and they're looking at it in a positive point of view. The double cheeseburger, with the deep fried whale blubber for an appetizer. Put it down with a supersized diet something.
Definitely diet. Diet.
And so it all starts with your perception. It's 100% you. It could be productive. It could be destructive. That influences your self-talk and it influences your behavior. So your self-talk, and this is key because this is where people want to really work to grow. Your self-talk either confirms or challenges your initial point of view. So it's like a peanut gallery in your own head that, follows you around going, yeah, what you just thought. Yeah. Or it's like, let's give it a moment. The curious thing is, if I have a negative perception of a situation and I confirm it, I'll just ask all your listeners. You have a negative perception of a situation and you confirm it with your self-talk. Just imagine what your self-talk statements are. Oh, math is stupid. Well, if I'm a high school student and I say that and I confirm it, it's like, I'll never need to use it. Only nerds study math. Everything will be computerized. I'll make so much money. It's like, okay, well, then how do you think that affects the person's behavior? They're not going to apply themselves to the best of their ability, and math will end up sucking for them. But if I challenge that negative perception, I would like to go to college, so I better make sure I get the grades. All right, so math, let me see if I can find reasons that it has value. All right, well, I'd like to get a mortgage someday, and I got to understand that. And there's a thing called a credit score, and if I understand that, it changes how I, get cars or apartments or stuff like that. Or I'd like to save for retirement, and all right, now maybe I'll get a tutor. Maybe I'll study math at the beginning instead of at the end of my day when I'm tired. All of a sudden, the behavior changes and the outcomes change. So self-talk either confirms or challenges. So I want your listeners to hear this. When you have a negative perception and you confirm it, you just take yourself down that rabbit hole. The goal for growth, and this is where individuals really begin to thrive, is when they can challenge a negative perception into a positive perception and take a look at what the benefits could be. I'm helping someone solve a problem. We can work collaboratively to find a solution. I love what I do. I am fortunate to be in this position. I make difference in people's lives. It's also a win-win. Not only do they get, but in the long term, I'll be able to have some financial stability. My boss will be happy. If I can challenge a negative self-talk, which talks me, in essence, think about this, everybody. Your self-talk talks you into or talks you out of everything in your life. Your little voice inside talks you into or talks you out of. If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. You will talk yourself into that. So the cool thing is I have to challenge my negative self-talk into a positive, and now my self-talk is positive. Now, how do you think that influences your behavior? So if you have one more negative self-talk than positive, you're going to avoid whatever it is. You won't put in the full effort. If you have one more positive self-talk than negative, you'll approach the situation. You will put forth the effort. Obviously, we'd like to have more than just one. We'd like to have a whole bunch, which affects your behavior. And on the behavior side, it's not controlled, but whatever, I always want to point out to people, thoughts and feelings do not equal behavior. You can have any thought. You can have any feeling.
Big one.
That's where trust the process. Yeah. I might have a thought or a feeling, but I have the skill. I might think that this is a big game. All right, well, just relax. Put myself in a quiet state. So the curious thing is, like those blinders, and that's a great metaphor. If I ask all of your listeners, don't think of a big purple elephant, especially the one with pink polka dots.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doc.
Yeah.
What we learn from evidence-based research in terms of brain science, you cannot tell your brain what not to focus on. So if you tell yourself, all right, so don't focus on this being a not so great neighborhood. Well, that's all my brain's focusing on. I hope this is not going to be a waste of my time. That's all I'm thinking about. If I tell my brain exactly what to focus on, all right, focus on connecting with this person, be in the moment, listen to what they're saying, make eye contact, establish a relationship, talk about what the person likes about their existing product, talk about what they would want in the future one. How can we work collaboratively to, if I stay in the now and I get out of my head and I'm actually connecting with this individual, my perception influences my self-talk, which influences my behavior, and I change the entire dynamic of this relationship with this customer.
Or anything in life.
Anything in life. Studying for an exam, asking someone out for a date, sales, competing in FIFA championship.
Saving a marriage.
Yes. Yeah. And that goes back to the attribution theory. Well, if it works out, it's because of me. If it doesn't work out, it's because of that other person. No, probably not.
Yeah.
It is really curious. People don't necessarily want to feel vulnerable. So in whatever corporation your listeners are coming from, hopefully management is listening. I have to set up an environment in my company that has efficiency set up, that make it simplified so information can go in both directions. I need people to understand that this is a growth model, that I can't be creating the pressure. People put enough on themselves. I want to provide training. I want to be receptive. I want people to talk to me about areas where they want improvement. Let's get you the training. Let's get you someone you can shadow. If I create an environment that is just hostile and, what would you call it? Just, if your almighty God is the dollar, and if it's all just about pumping the numbers, we'll just close out whatever the minimum percentage of closing is because we can get a trained chimp to do it.
Yeah.
That's a horrible message from management to their staff. As Richard Branson says, train people well enough so they can leave. Treat people well enough so they won't want to. Create an environment where they can, an anonymous Dropbox where they share thoughts, concerns, worries. If I see that there's a pattern coming from my sales force, I, as the manager, I need to take a proactive stance. I need to start addressing that rather than just saying that's the way the industry is.
Yeah.
And so hopefully those people in the higher positions that are listening understand that it's their role and responsibility to be proactive to address things that they see on a common basis. And if they take these ideas and help them communicate them to the sales force will be able to then establish greater relationships with the customers, increase the likelihood of being able to close. And if we're talking about, like you said, 3 out of 10, maybe 4 out of 10 on the high end, and if you just increase your percentage, 3%, 5%, you're dominating at that point. Here's a little factoid for everyone who's listening. Over the last 20 years, the tennis world has had.
I was just reading about this too. Go ahead.
All right. Well, it'll be interesting if we're in the
you told me about it originally, but then I just was going through. Yeah.
Okay.
It's scary.
All right. So over the last 20 years, there have been 3 gentlemen who have dominated the tennis world: Roger Federer, Rafa Nadal, and Djokovic. They have won virtually all of the Grand Slam championships over the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And so people are familiar with their names, that they just dominate. And I always like to ask, based on what the research shows, what do you think, what percentage of points do you think these guys win in order to dominate Djokovic has got 24 Grand Slams over these years. Rafa's got 22, and Federer has 20. That's how many they just dominate. And most people, when I ask them, like, what percentage of points do you think they win? Most people will say, I don't know, 80, 75%, maybe 70%. No, just under 54%. Just under that. Now, I'm hoping you got the same information.
No, you're spot on. Yeah, go ahead. Keep going. Yeah.
So the best of the rest are around 53%. And pretty much everybody else on the pro tour, because they're pros, that means they're winning more than they lose, are 51% to 53%. These guys have just dominated the sport. And they only win 54% of the points. Baseball. If I hit a single, strikeout, and ground out, every game for my career. Joe, what kind of a career is that? 1 out of 3, every game.
Oh, I'm going to the Hall of Fame.
You're going to the Hall of Fame as one of the greatest hitters of all time.
Yeah.
The curious realization is if I can just increase the percentage by a few percents, I dominate. That's realistic expectations with a high expectation. It's when people start having these unrealistic expectations that they get themselves frustrated. They start abusing the customers that they're meeting because they think it's not going to be up there.
In baseball, it's the difference between a 275 career hitter and a 300, which is Hall of Fame or not, is 1 hit in every 40 at bats. Right? And not only is it Hall of Fame or not, it's life-changing money. Like, if you want to look at it, you know what I mean? Like, these are the guys. It's back to horse racing. The horse wins by this much. Mm-hmm. And as they say, right? But the payout is, this much difference, right?
Exponential. Yes.
Is the horse that much better? No, he won by that much.
Yeah. How many games in football come down to the field goal?
Right?
Yeah. It's curious. What we're really kind of emphasizing today is this for many people, they buy into this. They understand it. They get it. They've talked to mentors. The people who have been successful have been saying this to them before. And so they appreciate what we're talking about. There are some individuals who are in the position where they're considering it. So they're going from the contemplative to the preparation. Change is not easy for anyone. Change is not easy for our customer to get him or her to move in a certain place. And change is not easy for any of us to be able to do something different. By the way, FYI, that's why people have New Year's resolutions. Because if they already would have done it, they wouldn't need a New Year's resolution. So the curious reality is we all know stuff. I mean, come on, how many people in the United States know that being obese is not so good?
Yeah.
And yet we're the most obese industrialized country in the world.
And we sell the most diet books on planet Earth.
Yes. Supplements left and right. And oh my gosh, we got everything for it. So knowledge isn't just the only thing that has to work. I hope that individuals can really appreciate this, commonly referred to then as a paradigm shift. It's not my customer is a revenue stream. If I can actually collaborate with this individual in the process, if I follow my training and I speak to this individual and I cooperate with them and I express value and appreciation and respect for who they are and what their needs are, we can work together in order to achieve the goal. That would be a win-win. It's not me trying to convince somebody. That's the great thing about it. When you're working with, you're not convincing anyone.
Yeah. Yeah. That's been a game changer. Just to give you an idea, so this was May 17th of 2017. Andy Murray was actually the number 1 player in the world, and he out of the 3 you named plus him, he had the lowest. Nadal actually had the highest win, and he was number 5 at the time with a 55%. win percentage, Andy Murray had a 53% and was number one in the world.
Realistic expectations are what we're talking about now. We all have room for growth. We all have room to improve. It's just difficult because we can feel kind of a fragile ego that gets in the way of admitting that I have room for growth, that I could still learn, that I can improve. And it's really kind of weird with that. Think about it this way. Athletes get training as they're developing. And when they get to the minor leagues, they get more training. And when they get to the major leagues, they get more training. It is a career, lifelong pursuit, ongoing, get in shape, train. Yeah. And yet, what we oftentimes do in the business world is we get our education, we get our training, and then you go out there and you perform without ever really exposing yourself to additional training, to truly trying to grow. And that becomes a problem because then we start just getting into our repetitive pattern. And that's where we get people who are just frustrated. They're just like, is this all there is? It's just the same grind over and over. I dislike what's going on. I dislike what I'm doing. I dislike my customer. I dislike the entire. There's so much more potential. I always talk about it. Like you were saying, there's that quiet time from on the drive from one customer to another. So we discussed that this time is great for visualization, to go through in my head how I want to come across. What's the message I want to send? How do I want to relate to this person? Post-shot routine, what can I learn? I don't just get pissed and leave and not think about it. I actually learn from it. I let it go. And now I start moving forward to the next at-bat. If I'm still dwelling on the past, not only can I not change the past, but I'm not in the moment. So for each individual, we talk about when you start new, you want to be able to go in with this fresh stance, 100%. I always tell people, go 100% of the time. Doesn't guarantee anything, but it increases my probability of success. Doing my best is my best. Do I have room for improvement? Absolutely. We all do. And that's what we're talking about today, helping people identify where their customers at on their stages of change model, their readiness to change. And in my field, which I always like to share with individuals, is the idea of motivational interviewing. There's actually a ton of research and verbiage you can use. So if someone's in the pre-contemplative, you can just kind of plant the seed. You just inform them of what's going on and then move them maybe to contemplative. But they've reached out to you. They've reached out to the company. So we know they're already at least here at the contemplative. So in this case, we know how to be able to, you want to avoid argumentation. It just means you're going the wrong way. If you're finding you're arguing with this person, you need to be able to develop the discrepancy between where they're at and where they want to be. You need to be able to express empathy, that you understand where this person is coming from. There are these key skills in motivational interviewing when someone is in the contemplative phase to help them move to a different location. For me, it's for oftentimes to get them to stop old habits and start new habits, to go from dishealth to health in a flourishing, proactive, preventive, resilient way. Same in sales. Speaking to them based on where they're at in the preparation phase. Get your ducks in a row, be able to make sure you've got maybe some other people that are supports to be able to help move it forward, to give someone like a start date, an end date. Well, when can we have the delivery? We'd be glad to be able to work that out. Let's check the schedule on that. Love to be able to follow up on that. Helping people move is actually my responsibility when we work collaboratively. It's not, we didn't move forward because of them. And that's where stages of change and motivational interviewing come together. So again, it's this established relationship. It increases satisfaction and it increases the likelihood for purchasing more things or for retention of patients, to be able to maintain continuity of care. And so helping your sales force understand that there is evidence-based science that if they practice and implement trusting the process, it will increase their probability of success rather than just looking at results orientation. It's the process that gets them to the outcome.
MI is one of those, it can be used now in leadership. It can be used in the home. It's, after working on it with you, that's like book 2 that I have to digest, but we'll finish book 1 together. But MI is, because it's the same thing. Here's where you and I, and we got to jump. I know you got to jump too. It's after 5. You're ready to probably be done for the day. MI, or like you mentioned, all you're doing is facilitating change.
Yep.
Whether it's habits in your example, or working with a ball player on something here with a customer, it's changing from what they have now to what they want.
Mm-hmm.
It's just change and facilitating that change. And MI, motivational interviewing, is, man, been a lot of fun reading all about it and just having to connect. And maybe you and I can jump back on and talk in more detail on that, because
I kind of hit on only 3 of the parts for just one of the stages. Yeah.
But it's, you start to see people, persuade themselves, if you want to say it that way, right? Because they're telling them, they're saying to them, because again, especially for you, and where this all stemmed from kind of was addicts. From my understanding, obviously you know as good as anybody, but you can't tell it, even though it's in their best interest. It's very challenging, unfortunately, to be able to tell an addict, you should stop doing this. Mm-hmm. They have to, get them through those stages of change, or otherwise it's just not going to work.
Excellent point. I know we're coming towards the
end.
Yeah,
I know.
If you assess every single person that you interact with regard to sales, and afterwards you take a look at all of those that didn't close, you will discover, so there's pre-contemplative, contemplative, preparation, action, and maintenance. You will discover that 40% of them were in the pre-contemplative, 40% were in the contemplative, and 20% were in the preparation. The problem is we're just shoving everybody into the action phase. We have to understand people move one stage at a time. And with MI, that's when we end up helping by establishing the relationship, moving someone along. We're working with someone. And that's how you see that beautiful movement going from where they're at now to where they want to be.
That's where I think it'll really take off quicker than maybe in the home is leadership. Yes. Working with your reps, working with your whatever. Yes. It's so powerful. And I've been fortunate enough to watch you work with me on it and do it. And you end up getting done our talk and you're like, I just solved my own problem. Mm-hmm. Or we just, figured this out through you just literally eliciting. And I think that's one of the big keys in all of MI is how do I, it's not induce. What's the word I'm looking for? Evoke, right? You're evoking because you're getting them through ambivalence, and we could go a whole nother hour. So Doc, it's Friday. It's 5. I can't thank you enough.
My pleasure, Joe, as always. I hope your listeners got a lot out of this.
I remember the first time, which was, believe it or not, it's been like a year and a half. You were one of the first. And so many people reached back out to me because they were more amazed that I had a friend as smart as you. But I'm sure there'll be plenty of value out of it. And a lot of people probably are in the homes actually doing what we're talking about doing right now. So they'll be watching it this evening. But I appreciate it. I hope you have a good weekend.
Thank you. As always, it's a pleasure. Let me wish the best to all of your listeners, and I'll look forward to seeing you on hopefully an episode in the near future.
Thanks, Doc.